My first job after college,
Yeah.
it was a posting at the college job center and said, travel through the mountains and talk to homeowners about energy conservation. And I had just moved out of the mountains from Lake Tahoe to go to school in the valley, and it was perfect. The guy interviewing me, the owner of the company, was amazing. He was the first time I met someone with charisma and real people skills. And he presented this opportunity to me in a way where he first took a little time to get to know me and he put the
Mhm.
opportunity in terms of benefits to me. And no
Yeah.
one had ever done that before. And I saw a chance for me to be pursue my dream as a jazz trumpeter while working for him, having the flexibility, making the money I needed. He got me really excited about what anyone else would think would be a horrible opportunity. And
Yeah.
there were times it was horrible.
Sure. It's
But
difficult to be a door-to-door salesman
oh,
is
constant
probably one of the most
rejection.
difficult jobs there is. Yeah, so much rejection.
But for a 21-year-old kid, I was making big money, had a lot of
Nice.
flexibility, and most importantly, I was developing the most critical skill I own, selling. How to approach someone, how to influence them to get them to do what you need them to do so you can offer them what you're selling, and then how to close.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
this guy was amazing. People did what he asked them to do because he had this amazing charisma. And these are
Mm.
things that I've broken down in my training when I coach leaders to be more effective leaders or to have executive presence. It's this combination of package of your tone, your voice, your eye contact, all your nonverbal gestures. This man commanded their attention and he was able to do what we call assume the sale.
Nice.
He would just assume they were going to do what he asked them to do. And where me as a new salesperson would be afraid to ask people certain things, this guy was amazing. So I learned so much from him. I learned to sell. Turns out I had some skills, and pretty soon I was training all his new people. And then one day they sat me down, he and his partner, and they had a huge wall map of the Los Angeles basin. This program is
Mm.
going to be huge, 100% financing, tax credits, rebates, and thousands of homes without any insulation and no competition.
Mm.
Well, a new Southern California gas company was starting up a program covering all of Southern California. They said, here it is. Within a year, you'll be running your own office. What do you say? Come to LA with us. I worked so hard to get back to school. I got a scholarship and a grant. I was on my own, so it was hard
Mm.
working and going to
Mm.
school. And I didn't want to give up on that. But I was studying in business from people who had never really run a business. And these
Sure.
guys were
Sure.
doing it. I dropped out of college and followed them to LA.
Wow.
I
Wow.
moved
Let me
five
go
times in 2 years.
5 times in 2 years throughout LA, like for basically to
Yeah.
target different areas.
From the first office in Fresno, then
Oh,
we had
oh,
three in LA and then
oh.
San Diego. I ended up running the San Diego office.
Wow.
So I had this tremendous experience as a 21, 22-year-old. This was a startup before we called them startups. There was no technology.
A
Startup,
true startup, yeah. Here's a
yeah.
question for you is so you just mentioned, right? You were learning so much from him. You saw what a real salesman was, an influencer, right? And a lot of it you said it was because he was starting to understand how to individually work with people, right? How to target them sort of that way. But I'm curious, you said, and so you were starting like a master's program, but you decided to drop out.
I was a community college dropout.
Oh,
I, I was trying to get my AA so I could transfer to University of California to get a BA in business administration.
okay, a Vietnam.
I started out as a music major. I was a jazz performance major.
Oh,
I finally realized it wasn't going to be a great way to make a living,
okay.
but I still wanted to play. My goal for being in business was to make enough money so that I could play music.
Oh,
That was my goal.
interesting.
So
Interesting.
didn't pan out that way to be financially independent at 30, but
Okay.
it's okay because in that first job, as distasteful and scary as
Mm.
it was, it was the basis for my entire career in a lot of ways because I learned to sell, which is number one, and then I learned to train. And the next few jobs were all in sales. When I went on the road with Evelyn Wood, again, this was something back in those days, they would advertise the job in the newspaper. call it a
Mhm.
classified ad. There was an ad to sell this nationally known educational program on college campuses around the country. Here's a chance to travel and make a lot of money. And hey, I wanted to travel. So, I mean, all of you grew up with that idea, go west, young man. Well, I was born west.
Yeah.
So I needed to go east to see, I wanted to see the East Coast and the rest of the country. So I go to the interview, and it turns out it's the Evelyn Wood speed reading program, which was very well known at the time because of their advertising program. My job was to go to a college town, and they would advertise and get students to show up for presentations. I would do
Mm.
three 2.5 hour presentations each day in a hotel just off campus. And then on the seventh day, I would travel to the next campus. It was actually the first lesson of the speed reading course. And I had to get everyone in the room to achieve success in speed reading because then it was a sales presentation and I had to close for a deposit from a bunch of broke college students. So I
Tough.
had to be good at my craft and I had to maintain the engagement in an audience for 2.5 hours. And here's where the guy who taught me this was really smart. He shared with us a very simple personality assessment guide, something based on Carl Jung's original work around dimensions of personal style. And this was a very simple one. I've since become certified in all the major ones. I've been fascinated by this behavioral science where you can look at an individual and determine their preferred way of being, especially when it comes to specific things like working with other people, situations involving time, task, or money. You can understand how they would want to do it. And then if you can change your behavior to let them do it the way that works for them, you're going to get less resistance. You're going to get more cooperation. You're going to get fewer no's and more yeses. And that's what selling is all about. I had to design my sales presentation so it had something for everyone in the room. And for the analytical types, I had the proof and the numbers for the goal achievers. For the interpersonal types, the people who just want to have good relationships, there was everything in there, all the charm, all the warmth, where they had to buy, those are people that have to buy you first. Then they'll buy your
Nice.
product. And then for the promoter types, actually the types like me, they have to see how this is going to give them the freedom they want to go and do all the wonderful things they're going to do, the creativity, the fun. So I created a presentation that covered something for everyone. And also part of that presentation were the stories, first starting with Evelyn Wood's story, how she discovered this, because it's easy to think that's impossible. This is a scam. How can you read that fast? Well, this woman, she saw people doing it and she studied them. She filmed their eye movements. How are they doing it? And then she came up with a way to teach other people. So the way to get people to understand and go along with you is through storytelling. You go
Storytelling.
back to biblical times, that's how Jesus did it. Jesus was recruiting followers, and he did it through parables, little stories with a lesson at the end, because that's what humans need and want. They learn well when you tell a good story. And if you think about the kids in our program, the first thing they're asked to do when they're standing in front of a room of investors is tell their story. How did they come across this problem? And then how did they come up with the solution? So, what are you giving me to invest in? Whose problems are we solving with my money now?
Sure.
If you're not a good storyteller, it's going to be hard for you. So, this is one of the critical skills.
Storytelling is a huge critical skill, man. And in this, it's very interesting to me that you're talking about, right, behavioral science. And then in these stories, we have to know who we're communicating to, or if it's a group, that the instance that you gave us was there almost had to be something for everyone, right? That is
It, it's
fascinating.
it's a science that can be broken down into tasks and approaches. You can use the tools there's dozens of personality models now. Every person I ever coached in business has taken at least one. The
Really.
problem is I started with that little one and I use it every single day. With every person I have to interact with, the first thing I ask myself is, who am I dealing with? What's their style? So how
Mm,
should I approach them? I'm strategic in how I approach people because I want better results. I know what it feels like to get a door slammed in your face and pit bulls chasing you back over the chain link fence. I know what it's like to bomb in front of 40 college students in
mm,
Kentucky and not make any money that day. And when our kids go up against these seasoned, mature adult investors,
mm.
sometimes they're going to fire questions at them that they may not be ready for, that are going to cut right to the quick. They need to be able to sell, and they need good speaking skills. They need that executive presence. And then from there, they need to understand the behavioral science to give people what they need. If you insist that other people adjust to your needs, you're going to get 25% of the room, the
Mm,
people that
mm.
are like you. They'll say,
Yeah,
okay, that works. But if you want to get more, you have to prepare in advance to adjust to their needs. It helps you
right.
reduce the resistance. It makes them want to give you yes. So when the kids and I call them kids, but I'm
Yeah, you're
getting
talking
our,
about the young entrepreneurs in the Yes program, of
yeah.
course.
The number one thing they have to do is make their audience like them.
Right.
There's a lot of behavioral science around this. There's a psychologist from UCLA that did a study, and he showed us exactly what you have to do to get your audience to like you. Because if they don't like you, they're not going to want to follow your call to action and do what you ask
Of
them to
course,
do.
of course.
Um, so likability is really important when you're on a stage. And he broke it down.
What are some of the
Here,
things, if you can recall, how to get people to like us?
and this is why this study was very famous because it was all nonverbal. Your words are important, though your words carry your meaning. But when it comes to likability, it's your look and your sound. It's all the nonverbals. It's how your eyes and your facial gestures work and your body, how you move your body on the stage. And then it's your voice. It's your actual sound, your tone, your pitch, your volume, your pace. Do you vary it when you speak? Does your pitch go up and down? And do you get louder when you want to? And then do you soften up for the really serious things? Are your nonverbal gestures in alignment with your speaking, with your words? Do you show excitement when it's something to be excited about? Do you show concern when you're worried about the problem that you eventually solved? Do you get puzzled when you were trying different things and you get frustrated and then thoughtful and inspired and happy and excited? All of these things help your audience identify and bond with you. And if they're going to spend money on you, got to have it. Now, there are some
Yeah.
highly analytical business people. They just want to look at the numbers. This is a winner or a loser. But you watch Shark Tank, right? How many times
Oh, yeah.
have you heard the shark say, well, I don't know about this, but I like you. I'm buying you.
Exactly.
I'm investing in you.
Wow. Wow.
Because
Sounds like
the
a great tip right there. Focus first on having people buy into us, right? They must know and like us first before we even pitch the business.
that's the story we coach the students to deliver. How did you
Mm,
do this? Who are you?
mm.
Who are you? How'd you come up with this? But do it in an interesting narrative form. Take the audience along with you. Get them to feel what you felt. My most recent client with BizWorld, this is something I have to work with him on because he's a very low key dude. He's very credible. You have to arouse someone's emotion to sell them because we buy on emotion and then we justify with logic.
Mm,
The classic thing back in the days when I was selling insulation, I had to get both the husband and wife, or whoever the homeowners were, they had to agree. If you're down at the used car lot and you buy a car and you have to go home and tell your spouse, the salesperson's going to get you excited because they're going to get you to think about how cool it's going to be, how awesome you're going to look when you're sitting in this car at the stoplight and those people next to you look at you, or how fast it's going to go. They get you excited on what you could do,
mm, mm,
emotionally
mm,
excited.
mm, mm,
Then you have to go home and use logic to explain to your spouse. Well, this one, car driver, right, is the number one in the safety crash testings and the financing. In fact, we're going to make money on this car. No, you're not, dummy. But if you can't use logic to defend your purchasing decision, you're going to have a problem with your partner. And the
mm,
same is
mm.
true in business. You have
Mm,
partners in your business. And first thing that has to happen is your emotions need to be aroused for you to want something or to think it's worth investing in. And then you have to have the proof to back up your
mm,
decision. So these
mm,
investors, first, they want to know about you. They want to get excited about your discovery. You
mm.
discovered a solution to a problem. This problem is a pain for all these people because that's what defines your market. How many people are suffering from the problem you stumbled across? And now the solution comes. How do we make money off of your solution? And once they've sized you up, they go, okay, this kid's pretty sharp. It was a good idea. Now comes the data. And in Shark Tank, it
Mm,
always happens. They want to hear the story. They come out
mm.
and do a little skit or a song,
Sure,
and the people
sure.
clap. Hey, I like you. And then, all right, tell us about your sales.
Yeah, let's hear the
Then,
numbers now.
yeah. So you see it in every Shark Tank show. You have
Mm,
to sell yourself, and then you have to sell your business or your product or service, and you have to show the proof. So our students in BizWorld, they get great training from our business coaches on here's your business model, here's your proof.
mm,
Then
mm.
the pitch coaches come in and we teach them how to speak and how to sell.
Nice. Nice.
We coach them on their executive presence and how to become likable in front of their audience's eyes and deliver their story in a way so there's something for everybody in that audience. That's my goal. I get very little time, but that's
Sure.
my goal with my coaching charges is to give them the best possible chance for their business model to work with the investors.
So is this what you're doing with your business, AB Strategic Leadership? It sounds like you're working on something similar.
I do two. I have two basic streams. It's training, and I've been
Mm,
in leadership training for a long time.
mm,
I'll go into a company and I'll work with either a large group or a small individual team, and I will train them on these things. In fact,
mm,
I'll go in and do a half day or a day long workshop. First, I have them all take an assessment. Then I teach them the common language because every executive I've ever coached has taken Myers Briggs or DISC or Enneagram, or
mm, mm,
they've taken one of these assessments and then they've promptly forgotten what all the terms mean. They get a sense of themselves, but they never see it as a tool. This is how I read the room and give people what they need. This is how I coach my employees and coach them differently based on their needs. This
mm,
is how I
mm.
do it. So, first thing is, I train the room in my language. I didn't want to reinvent the wheel, come up with my own personality assessment. I want to rename the wheel. And
Sure, sure.
because I'm a musician, this is how I think. When I'm approaching a gig and I'm looking at the music, the first thing I do is sort it. Well, what genre is it? If
Nice.
it's rock and roll, we're going to play it this way, heavy on the downbeat. If it's classical, it's completely different. I can't stand out. I'm part of a section. And you have to play every note as written. In fact, there's instructions in the music exactly how to play the note, how loud or soft. Are you swelling or reducing? How to tongue your trumpet. What kind
Yeah.
is it long, slow? Is it stick? And you have to follow all those instructions immediately. But if I'm playing jazz, they
Mm,
gave me the main idea, and then they said, okay, your turn. And I have to
yeah.
go improvise in front of an audience, but I still have to keep within the chord structure, the structure of the culture that I'm in, but then I'm free to innovate any way I want. So I use a method that I call the genres of people. Instead of
Oh,
being a behavioral or interpersonal um, or driver or promoter, you're either rock and roll, classical, pop, or jazz, because those four genres have specific rules to how you play them, and everybody knows it. Anybody, probably anybody in the world, if you gave them those four genres in their language, they would understand what you're talking about.
mm,
And they would know that the Beatles, that's pop music. They would understand. And John Coltrane is jazz, and Miles Davis are jazz. They know this. So if you can associate something new to what you already know, you're going to remember it. And if you remember it, you have a chance to use it. So I'll
yeah.
work with a team of people. I'll teach them first, here's your style. And then I'll group them by their individual styles and have them do something. I play Shark Tank with them. I have
Mm,
them create a product or service and sell it to the room. And then everyone thinks I'm judging them on their product or service. And at the end, I tell them, okay, I didn't care what you came up with. What I was looking for was how you were trying to sell it to me. Now, watch this. Did you notice that the rock and roll people did this? They spoke in strong declarative sentences. They didn't get much into the detail, but they were focused on how you were going to achieve something and keep it on time, under budget. But
Mm-hmm.
over here with the classical folks, do you notice how deep in the weeds they got? And they gave you all the numbers to convince you that this was a solid thing. In fact, they gave you too many numbers, didn't they? They overwhelmed. But by showing them in real life how this works, then I motivate them to, I need to use behavioral science every day. In fact, I need to start with my family because I got to get my kid or my spouse to do what I'm trying to do. And all I'm getting is resistance. Well, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because you're asking them to behave in a way that's comfortable for you. But they're a different genre. You're rock and roll and they're pop and you're steamrolling them and they worried you need to adjust to their style.
Love it.
And
Yes.
that will melt away a lot of your resistance right there.
It
This is
absolutely.
why
It's
I
a
got so excited about this when I learned this early on,
oh,
because for me, this was a practical way to get more people to open their doors, for me to make more sales and make more money.
sure. Understanding people. So that's how you got to behavioral science, right? And then you can open more doors, make more sales. So you do a lot of training, whether it's with small groups or large groups, teaching them
I do
this
leadership
approach.
training in groups
Yes.
and I do executive coaching one on one.
Oh,
I essentially do many of the same things, but in different ways. But with the one-on-one, I have more time. I'll meet with them an hour a week for 6 months, or
mm,
in one case, a year. And
mm,
in those cases, I usually get some feedback. They do what's called a 360 feedback,
mm.
where a survey of everyone they work with, their leaders, their peers, and their direct reports, their followers, if you will.
Okay.
They're asked a series of questions. What's this person like? How well they do this? And we get a lot of data back, and it's done
Mm,
anonymously. So people are free to be honest. And someone will get tremendous feedback. Not that it's good feedback, but it's
mm,
good to get this feedback because it's the kind of stuff you need to know that most people will never tell you. It's like when you didn't shower and you got body odor.
mm.
Only your best friends are going, hey, dude,
You stink.
everyone else will be talking behind your back and spreading rumors,
Sure.
but it's the important people, it's their job to keep you safe by telling you things about yourself. Well, you don't often get real honest feedback in life. So in this
Mm,
process, sometimes it's hard to read. Sometimes it's very fulfilling and it's wonderful, but sometimes we're told about our blind spots, the things we don't
yeah.
realize. So then
Sure.
I coach them through them and I show them a way to reduce the amount of negative feedback and interactions they're getting and increase the amount of positive ones they're already getting by adjusting their behavior for the needs of the people around them. That's a nice idea about fairness, but the platinum rule, treat other people the way they want to be treated,
Beautiful.
far more effective. But
Oh,
you only get to that if you're observant and you're patient and you're willing to invest some time up front to know how that person wants to interact with what you're asking them to do.
mm,
A
mm.
lot of leaders in too big of a hurry to do that. Or they think it doesn't matter, you're getting paid, shut up and do what I tell you.
Yeah.
Those aren't the leaders that people follow from job to job.
Mm-mm.
Those aren't the leaders that groom their people to go in higher positions in the organization and innovate great things and
Mm.
make them proud by doing far more. Those are the kind of leaders we all want to get away from as soon as we can.
I get
I
it.
work with people
Uh,
one on one, and I work with teams and larger groups. So it's training and coaching,
Yeah.
and that's why when I got the call at the time, I was the vice president of programs for my local chapter of the National Speakers Association. I've been a
Okay.
member of the National Speakers Association, and I've earned their highest earned designation, the Certified Speaking Professional Award.
Oh, wow.
Present over 250 times over a period of a few years and have enough clients that will give enough feedback and submit a videotape. to a panel of
Right.
people who've already earned this award and
Wow.
don't want to dilute the power of the award by
Sure.
giving it to someone that's going to look a little sloppy on stage. So
Mm.
there's some tough critics judging you. Uh, so for a year in my leadership courses, I was a internal leadership instructor for 6 years for a very large utility in California. And again, that gave me practice every day in front of an audience, but with leadership topics rather than trying to sell them insulation or a speed reading course. But it was the same skills, just
Nice.
on a bigger stage and more sophisticated platform. And I've set up a camera in the back of the room. And over the course of a year, I videotaped myself doing individual management classes and large all hand meetings.
Mm.
And then I couldn't stand to watch them
Yeah.
until we get used to it. So I waited to the end of the year and then I sat down, I forced myself to watch myself. And there
Yeah.
are times when I cringe. I can't believe I said that or did it that way. Because often we're our own harshest critics.
Sure.
And then I would find the places I go, okay, that was good. Okay, that was pretty
Mm.
professional.
Mm.
So I had to sort through 2 dozen video recordings and find the one to submit to the judges.
Oh,
And by the time I was done with that whole exercise, and I was already skilled before I got the job, because by the way, in my field, when you apply for a job in training, it's not an interview, it's an audition.
sure.
I had to audition in front of a panel of 3 people, and they tell you, come in with your best 10 minutes.
Nice.
That's how you get one of those jobs.
Wow.
So, talk about speaking and selling. You got to do that to get the job. And then that's what you're doing all day long.
Sure.
And sometimes you're doing it with people who have been in that industry or that company for 20, 30 years. And who the heck are you? In fact,
Yeah.
you've
Now
never
you.
climbed a pole or trench something for a gas line. Why would I listen to you?
Sure.
And that's what all of our participants have to overcome. They already have a disadvantage. They're young, speaking to
Mm.
experienced people. Why should they listen to you? So you have to peel away your naivete and your inexperience, and you got to play on their court by their rules and come right at them. And one of the best ways to do is to charm them a little bit up front and tell them a story that makes them go, "What a what a great idea." Really get that emotional reaction from them first, and then when they get to, okay, tell us about your sales, then show them the logic and the reasoning and the proof
Mm.
for them to justify their investment. Again, they're going to
Nice.
buy on emotion and
By
justify with logic.
emotion.
They're going to go,
Emotion
oh,
just about logic.
I
Wow.
so like this young woman. She reminded me of me. She's so
Mm.
smart. She's so old. I really liked her. I loved her story, but I don't think her business model's there yet. Or however it goes. The first step is you got to win the likability battle.
You
And
have to
again,
win the likability battle. That's the
yeah,
first step.
and
Yeah.
that is your voice in your face, in your body, all nonverbal.
All
Of
nonverbal.
course, you have to put together a good presentation with something for everyone,
Mm.
but your delivery is more important than anything else. If you deliver well, they'll want to know your numbers. Then you give them the
Sure.
numbers.
Sure.
We see it every week on Shark Tank. We see it every season in BizWorld. I was a VP of programs for my local chapter of the National Speakers Association. So they found me on the website. They called me and they say, hey, we would love some professional speakers to come be pitch coaches for our kids in this program. I said, tell me about this program. And they sold me right off. I said, what a great program. So I went to all of my professional speakers, fully grown adults, supposed to be successful in their fields.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
put it out there, not one person.
Really?
And I said, well, I'm doing this. So I said, I'm really sorry. I couldn't get anybody, but I get it. This is a great thing.
Yeah.
And, I was also raised a certain way, and I've also learned along the way, but giving back just makes you bigger, stronger, better. That paying it forward, it's why you're here. It's how you got here. Now it's your turn. And, when you're younger, people tell parents, oh, it's better to give than receive. And you hear
Mm,
that and you go, are you out of your mind? Give me
mm,
more. But when you get older, there's this intrinsic satisfaction from being valuable to others for free. Now, there's very strong extrinsic satisfaction when they pay you for that.
of
But the
course.
intrinsic reward actually means a lot more. And just to tie this in, this is why when leaders adjust their behavior for the needs of their people, they get people who follow them more fiercely because they satisfy their intrinsic needs. But if you
Mm,
just satisfy people with money or bonuses, that's like junk food.
yeah.
It's digested very quickly and it's gone. And then they need more of it. But that intrinsic, that deep, I value you as a human, that's a 9-course meal that they'll remember for a long time. In fact, if you think about it in your life, I bet there are a few people, coaches, teachers, employers, where you'll never forget what they did for you. And then there's all those forgettable ones.
Yeah, exactly. Because they didn't connect as customized for me. They didn't touch those emotions, right? We are starting to run out of time, but I know you are launching or just released a new book.
I was going to mention that because the first two guys I told you about, the guy who taught me
Mm,
how to sell insulation and the guy who taught me to sell Evelyn wood, they
yes.
were both extremely memorable because they understood me first and they put everything in terms that were meaningful to me. The first guy, I moved 5 times for him, Scott. The second guy, Josh, I traveled the country. I went out one time and spent 10 weeks on the road, 10 weeks straight,
Mm,
7 days a week, because both of them let me be who I was because they
mm,
got who I was and
mm.
let me know they appreciated me in the way they led me all the way along. They are the first and second chapters in this book because I learned so much from them.
Wow.
And I've had many bosses and leaders who you would never read about because they're
Oh,
completely forgettable. They were
oh,
concerned
wow.
about rules, punch time clocks, and they didn't understand the importance of behavioral science and personality. If you don't connect with people as humans, you're just bossing people around, telling them what to do, and nobody really gets fed on that for a long period of time. Oh, they get fed up with it, but it
He
doesn't
gets fed
nurture.
up with it. That's not
Yeah,
nurturing, not fulfilling. And so your new book here, Working in Harmony.
it's
It's
up on Amazon. We just launched it. I got bestseller in 4 categories, including sales and sales presentations and HR and personnel management. The first part is autobiographical. It's just like we've been doing here. The leadership concepts I learned in the early parts of my career. And I
mm,
take you through Scott with insulation and Josh with Evelyn Wood. And I end with me going to Japan. That's for another day. But I spent 2.5 years in a foreign culture. And boy, did I learn about how to fit in with that culture, how to understand the chord changes and the genre that I'm playing in but still be able to stand out in a culture that doesn't want you to stand out. Then
yeah.
get into the middle part is all behavioral science. Some of the standard stuff, Jung's work, but a lot of other behavioral science. And the proof where companies like Google went out and proved these things for themselves. The importance of people skills, the importance of the certain type of manager or leader. And then the last five, down here you see this is the 5 vital skills. Here it says to raise your team's performance, but it's 5 vital skills you need to succeed in any business endeavor.
What are
And
the 5 vital skills that you need to succeed in any business endeavor?
number one, names, because a name is a person's brand. And for someone whose name was always mispronounced from
Mm,
kindergarten on, I learned how important it is that I pronounce other people's names correctly and I memorize them because the sweetest sound to anyone's ear is the sound of their
it's
own
their
name.
name.
The second is the attitude. You have to have an open
Mm,
attitude where you don't see people and start judging them. I don't know if
mm,
you watched Ted Lasso, but he taught us be curious, not judgmental. So you have to see every human as a possible business partner,
mm,
investor, spouse, best friend, and then approach them and have this attitude of openness because
mm,
some of the greatest connections in my life were found in strange places.
Oh
in a
goodness.
snowstorm in a movie set in Lake Tahoe, on a
Mm,
beach in Cancun, in a hair salon where I met my wife. These were chance encounters that people that have been with me in my entire life. So your attitude's critical. Three is initiative. You need to be the social leader. You approach that person first and introduce them. Then you
mm,
introduce yourself. Then you introduce them to everyone around you.
mm,
Set the tone for the relationship by doing it. You don't want to be a reactor, you want to be an initiator because that's you get to frame the conversation. You get to make sure their needs are taken care of, and now you've earned something with them. Then listening. A salesperson, sometimes we think salespeople are good at talking. Great closers are great at listening. One of my greatest teachers, Judge Judy,
oh
will
yeah.
yell at you in court. You got two ears and one mouth for a reason.
Uh,
We need to be better listeners. And
mm,
by being a good listener, you need to be a better questioner. And a good leader knows how to ask the right questions and shut up and listen and understand what your people are thinking, what they know. You don't have to tell them everything. Ask them first, and then you could just fill in on what you just found out they didn't know. Listening and the Socratic method are the most powerful ways to teach and lead. And then finally, the last S is smile to represent
smile.
all the nonverbals because all the nonverbals that gives you the likability and that
Mm,
allows people to lean in so then you can ask for what you want. And it's
mm,
critical in teaching, in leading, in negotiating, all the nonverbals. So that actually, I give people a whole primer on how to be a speaker in this book,
sure.
all the things you need to become a great speaker, except the practice. You got to do that all on your own. And if you add that up, and this was important to me because if you don't retain it, doesn't work. So I have everyone put on their nails Nails or S, nails, names, attitude, initiative, listening, and smile for the nonverbal.
Wow.
That when they finish reading this book, they have a way to remember it. Because if you don't use this every single day,
There it is, the picture in the book of the fingernails.
this is what I learned from Evelyn Wood and teaching speed reading. Memory is critical. I mean, your comprehension is great. Understand it today is great. But if you're going to have it accessible for tomorrow, you have to
Mm,
learn to work your memory. And I work on that in the book. I teach you how to memorize names. So everyone will tell you, oh, I got a terrible memory for names. No, you don't. You have an untrained memory for names. I
right.
took a Dale Carnegie course back in the day, and they
Mm,
taught me the importance and some simple things on how to memorize names. And I'm able to go out and memorize a room full of names now because I just have these simple things I do in my head over and over and over and over and over again. I practice getting it in, I practice pulling it out. I never say to anyone I've got a bad memory for names. If I make a mistake, I say, I'm sorry, what was your name again?
mm,
Wayne. That's right. South
mm,
Africa, Vermont,
mm,
BizWorld. And
mm,
I file it away in the appropriate place and then I
mm.
pull it back later. So this book is kind of the culmination of my professional work, starting out door to door in ghettos selling insulation, ending up teaching leadership to leaders and coaching
Sure.
executives from companies like NVIDIA and Autodesk and
Wow.
Google and Cisco, some of the top companies. It's just interesting though. A lot of our leaders don't get great leadership training from their
Mm,
organizations. They're too busy getting that next version out. They're too
sure.
busy adapting to tariffs or whatever's going on in the
Yeah.
marketplace. So I'm finding some of the things that I learned a long time ago are kind of news to some of our new leaders. And especially for someone just getting out of college, entering the
Sure.
workforce, um, these are things I learned in person and from the mentors I had around me. Now it's time to pass that on. And that's why
Pass it on.
those of us who volunteer to support the participants in BizWorld, we get tremendous intrinsic value from it. And that's why we do what we do. And we love to see our people succeed.
Absolutely. And we are so thankful for you, for all of our other mentors also.
Please go today to
Yeah.
Amazon. Just type in
Mm,
Working in Harmony or Aram Boyd, and buy my book and leave a review. That would do a lot for me. I would appreciate that.
Consider it done. Consider it
Okay.
100% consider it done.
Greatly
Thank you
appreciate it.
for your time. I really appreciate it from everybody at BizWorld. Again, thank you for being a mentor, for being a coach. We hope to inspire many more to come and join us.
And thank you for giving me an opportunity to be valuable. There is no greater thing in life than being valuable to other people. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Wayne. A pleasure to meet you.